Welcome to the channel. If you love deep dives into world events, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more content like this. Could World War III start in the Middle East? The very thought conjures images of devastation and global upheaval. It's a question that has lingered in the shadows of international relations for years, a chilling possibility that many have dismissed as mere speculation. For decades it seemed like a distant fear, a scenario confined to the pages of dystopian novels and geopolitical simulations. We watched conflicts unfold from afar, comforted by the illusion of separation and the belief that such a catastrophe could never truly reach our doorstep. But today, June 23, 2025, that fear is real. The headlines scream of escalating tensions, military deployments, and diplomatic failures. The unthinkable has become a stark and terrifying reality. The world is watching, holding its breath as events unfold with alarming speed. Every news bulletin, every political statement, every military maneuver is scrutinized for signs of hope or impending doom, as three nations stand locked in a conflict that could spiral into catastrophe. Iran, Israel, and the United States, each with their own strategic interests and historical grievances, are now on a collision course that threatens to engulf the entire region and beyond. The fuse has been lit, a spark ignited in the tinderbox of Middle Eastern politics, and the explosion's echo is still ringing, reverberating across continents and shaking the foundations of global stability. The initial strikes have unleashed a chain reaction of retaliatory measures and escalating threats. Years of failed diplomacy, countless hours spent in fruitless negotiations, covert operations, and broken trust have led us here. Decades of mistrust and animosity have poisoned the well of international cooperation, leaving us vulnerable to the brink of war. The US and Israel decided, after careful deliberation and strategic calculation, the risk of a nuclear-armed Iran, a scenario that could destabilize the entire region and trigger a global arms race, outweighed the risk of war. It was a gamble, a desperate attempt to prevent a greater catastrophe, but now the world must grapple with the consequences of that fateful decision. Now the world must face the consequences of that choice. The die has been cast, and the future hangs precariously in the balance. In this video, we'll break down how we reached this moment, tracing the complex web of events and decisions that have led us to this critical juncture. The key players, examining the motivations and strategies of the leaders and factions involved in this high-stakes game, and what's at stake. We'll delve into the potential ramifications of this conflict, exploring the geopolitical and economic consequences that could reshape the world order. What began as a regional dispute, a localized conflict fueled by long-standing grievances and power struggles, now threatens to draw in global powers, as alliances are tested and nations are forced to choose sides in this escalating crisis, and disrupt the world's economy. The ripple effects of this conflict are already being felt in global markets with rising oil prices and increased economic uncertainty. This is the story of how we got here, and why it matters to everyone. Because in a world as interconnected as ours, no one is truly immune to the consequences of war. The attack came without warning, under the cover of night. On June 22nd, the US and Israel launched Operation Midnight Hammer, a massive airstrike on Iran's nuclear sites. Over 125 aircraft, including B-2 stealth bombers, targeted Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. 75 precision-guided bombs, including bunker busters, struck deep underground. The Fordow facility, once thought invulnerable, was devastated. US officials declared the mission a success. Iran was caught off guard. Satellite images showed craters where nuclear sites once stood. President Trump confirmed the strikes, saying all American planes returned safely. Tehran denied the extent of the damage but vowed swift retaliation. The world now waits for Iran's response. The decision to bomb Iran's nuclear sites was years in the making. At the heart of the conflict, Iran's nuclear program. The US and Israel have long feared Iran's uranium enrichment could lead to a bomb. Iran claims peaceful intent, but its secrecy fuels suspicion. For Israel, a nuclear Iran is an existential threat. For the US, it risks a regional arms race. Intelligence suggested Iran was close to a nuclear breakout. With diplomacy stalled and time running out, military force became the chosen option. The strikes were a gamble, one born of deep-seated fear and frustration. Leaders believed sanctions and talks had failed. The world now faces the fallout of that gamble. The path to Operation Midnight Hammer was paved with years of rising tension. It began in 2018, when the US withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal and reimposed sanctions. Iran responded by ramping up uranium enrichment and limiting inspections. A shadow war followed: sabotage, assassinations, and attacks on oil facilities. By early 2025, Iran was enriching uranium to 60% and restricting inspectors. Israel pushed for action, warning the window to stop Iran was closing. Behind the scenes, US leaders debated, but pressure mounted. Israel launched smaller strikes to weaken Iran's air defenses. On June 21st, President Trump gave the order. The next night, the midnight hammer fell. Iran's nuclear program. It's a complex and controversial topic, one that has dominated international headlines and diplomatic discussions for decades. The program itself is shrouded in secrecy, fueling speculation and concern among global powers, has been a source of global anxiety for over 20 years. The international community has watched with increasing unease as Iran has developed its nuclear capabilities, leading to numerous rounds of negotiations, sanctions, and diplomatic pressure. Officially, Iran says it wants nuclear power for energy and medicine. They argue that as a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, they have the right to develop nuclear technology for peaceful purposes. They point to their growing energy needs and the potential for nuclear medicine to improve healthcare for their population. But uranium enrichment is the sticking point. This is where the line between peaceful and military applications becomes blurred, raising serious concerns about Iran's true intentions. At low levels, it's for power. At high levels, it's for bombs. The process of enrichment involves increasing the concentration of the U-235 isotope, which is necessary for both nuclear reactors and nuclear weapons. The higher the enrichment level, the closer the material is to being weapons grade. Iran's move to enrich uranium to 60% in 2025 set off alarms worldwide. This level of enrichment is far beyond what is needed for peaceful purposes, and is a significant step closer to weapons-grade material. It triggered immediate condemnation from world powers and intensified fears about Iran's nuclear ambitions. Combined with its missile program, the West saw a looming threat. The development of long-range missiles capable of delivering a nuclear payload further heightened concerns about Iran's potential to develop and deploy nuclear weapons. Iran insists it has a right to peaceful nuclear technology, citing international treaties. They maintain that their nuclear program is under the supervision of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, and that they are committed to transparency and non-proliferation. It claims higher enrichment is for medical or naval use, and points to Israel's undeclared arsenal as hypocrisy. This adds another layer of complexity to the situation, as the lack of transparency surrounding Israel's nuclear capabilities fuels regional tensions and mistrust. But the US and Israel don't buy it, citing Iran's history of concealment and hostile rhetoric. They point to past instances where Iran has been found to be in violation of its international obligations and express skepticism about its current claims. The trust is gone. Years of broken promises and failed negotiations have eroded confidence in Iran's commitment to peaceful nuclear activities. Fear of a secret bomb program has now led to open conflict. The worst-case scenario has materialized, with the threat of nuclear proliferation contributing to regional instability and armed conflict. The world is left to deal with the consequences. The international community faces the daunting task of containing the conflict, preventing further escalation, and finding a way to address the underlying issues that have fueled this crisis. Each side in this standoff, Iran, the US, and Israel, has its own motives. For Iran, the nuclear program is a shield against foreign intervention and a bid for regional power. Tehran sees nuclear capability as leverage, not just for defense but for influence. Sanctions have pushed Iran to the brink, hoping to force new negotiations on its terms. For Israel, it's about survival. A nuclear Iran is an existential threat. Israel's goal: eliminate Iran's nuclear capability by force if necessary. The US wants to prevent a nuclear arms race, protect allies, and keep oil flowing. Washington seeks a stable Middle East and a non-nuclear Iran. While strategies differ, the end goal is the same: stop Iran from getting the bomb. The stakes couldn't be higher. In the aftermath of Operation Midnight Hammer, a daring strike that reverberated across the globe, the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East hangs precariously in the balance. The dust has barely settled, but the implications of this operation are already sending shockwaves through the region and beyond. The entire Middle East is now gripped by a palpable tension and deep uncertainty. All eyes are fixed on Iran as the world holds its breath, waiting to see what course of action they will take. The delicate balance of power in the region is threatened, and the potential for further conflict looms large. Iran, with unwavering resolve, has vehemently vowed revenge for the attack. The supreme leaders have promised a response that will be felt far and wide, raising fears of a swift and decisive retaliation. As the threat of escalation intensifies, the world scrambles to prevent further conflict. Diplomatic channels are working overtime with world leaders engaging in urgent discussions to de-escalate the situation and find a peaceful resolution. The United Nations Security Council has convened an emergency session seeking to forge a united front against further aggression. European allies, deeply concerned about the potential for a wider conflagration, are urging restraint from all parties involved. They emphasize the need for dialogue and diplomacy to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. The fear of a wider war is palpable, as nations across the globe assess their strategic interests and prepare for the worst-case scenario. Military preparations are underway, with troops being deployed and defense systems being activated. In the midst of this turmoil, Arab states remain uncharacteristically quiet, carefully weighing their options and assessing the potential impact on their own stability. While publicly silent, many Arab nations are likely relieved to see Iran's nuclear program set back, as it removes a significant source of regional tension and potential threat. Russia and China, staunch allies of Iran, have strongly condemned the strikes, denouncing them as acts of aggression and violations of international law. They are calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities and a return to diplomatic negotiations, emphasizing the need to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all nations. In response to the escalating tensions, U.S. forces stationed in the Middle East have been placed on high alert, bolstering their defenses and increasing their readiness to respond to any potential threats. They are bracing for potential retaliation from Iran or its proxies, taking all necessary precautions to protect American personnel and assets in the region. Adding to the complexity of the situation, Iran's network of proxy forces, including Hezbollah and other militant groups, have issued ominous threats of attacks. These threats are directed at U.S. and Israeli interests worldwide, raising concerns about potential terrorist attacks and other forms of asymmetric warfare. In Yemen, the Houthis, another Iranian-backed group, have vowed to disrupt shipping in the Red Sea, a vital artery for global trade. This threat poses a significant risk to global trade, potentially disrupting supply chains and driving up prices for consumers around the world. Inside Iran, the strikes have sparked a complex mix of emotions ranging from outrage and defiance to fear and uncertainty. While some Iranians are rallying around the flag, expressing nationalist fervor and vowing to resist foreign aggression, others are voicing internal dissent, questioning the government's policies and its handling of the crisis. Cracks are beginning to appear within the Iranian elite, as some question the supreme leader's leadership and his ability to navigate this perilous situation. The internal divisions within the Iranian government could have significant implications for the country's future. The regime's foundations are shaken by the recent events, and the leadership faces a growing challenge to maintain its authority and legitimacy. Iran stands at a critical crossroads, facing a momentous decision that will determine its future and the future of the region. The world waits with bated breath to see if Iran chooses to escalate the conflict, risking a full-blown war with devastating consequences, or if it seeks a way out of this crisis through diplomacy and negotiation, paving the way for a more peaceful and stable future. The stakes are high, and the world watches with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Could this crisis spark World War III? It's no longer an idle question. The risk of escalation is real. One strike could trigger a chain reaction. A regional war could quickly draw in neighboring countries and disrupt global oil supplies. The real nightmare, Russia or China intervening to support Iran, turning a proxy war into a direct confrontation with the US and its allies. A single miscalculation could pull in NATO or other alliances. The conflict would become a global struggle for power, not just about Iran's nuclear program. The world is on a slippery slope, and the path back to stability is narrow. The initial strikes have set events in motion with no clear end in sight. The stakes are global, and the danger is real. We stand at a pivotal moment in history. The US and Israeli strikes have shattered the status quo and pushed the world to the brink. The next moves are up to Iran-limited retaliation or all-out escalation. Internal power struggles in Tehran will shape the outcome. This conflict affects everyone: fuel prices, markets, refugees, and global security. It could reshape alliances and the balance of power for years to come. The bombs that fell on Iran's nuclear sites were just the beginning. The coming days will require restraint and urgent diplomacy, The world watches, hoping leaders can pull back from the abyss. The question, could World War III start in the Middle East, remains unanswered. The choices made now will define our future. If you found this video insightful, please subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps us bring more in-depth analysis on world events. See you in the next video.